What happens when experienced hunters vanish in broad daylight? When search dogs refuse to track their scent? When entire teams find nothing but abandoned gear? Over the past 15 years, at least 12 hunters have disappeared in the forests near Mount Hood, Oregon, just outside government camp. These weren't beginners. They were seasoned outdoorsmen who knew the wilderness. Some locals say there's something in those woods that doesn't hunt like an animal. It studies you first. Listen to this story because what I discovered investigating these disappearances is beyond disturbing. Welcome to Unexplained Accounts, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. I investigated why hunters keep vanishing in Oregon. I'm writing this down because I need people to understand what's happening in the forests of Oregon. I'm a freelance journalist, and I don't scare easily. But after 3 weeks investigating these disappearances, I don't think I'll ever go hiking alone again. My name is Marcus Webb. I've been covering outdoor and wilderness stories for about 8 years, mostly for regional publications in the Pacific Northwest. In September 2024, I got a message from a woman named Carol Hendricks. Her husband David had vanished while bow hunting near Mount Hood National Forest, about 5 miles east of Government Camp, Oregon. David was 52, an experienced hunter with over 30 years in those woods. He knew the terrain better than most rangers. When he didn't return to his truck by dark on September 14th, Carol called search and rescue. They found his compound bow leaning against a tree the next morning. His backpack was 20 yards away, opened but not ransacked. His phone was inside, fully charged. No signs of animal attack, no blood, no struggle. The search dogs tracked his scent to a small clearing, then stopped. The handlers said the dogs acted strange, whining and backing away, refusing to go farther. One dog wouldn't even enter the clearing. They searched for 5 days. Nothing. At first, I figured he got turned around, maybe had a medical emergency and wandered off disoriented. It happens. But Carol told me something that made me pause. 2 weeks before David disappeared, he'd told her the woods felt different. He said he kept hearing someone calling his name from deep in the forest. But when he'd investigate, there was nobody there. He thought it was other hunters at first, but it happened 3 separate times. Always his name, always the same direction. I started digging. David wasn't the first. Between 2009 and 2024, at least 11 other hunters or hikers had vanished in roughly the same area, all within a 7-mile radius of government camp. Most were experienced outdoorsmen. All disappeared during daylight hours. In 8 of the cases, search dogs lost the scent or refused to track. Personal items were found, but no bodies. The cases went cold. Families got no answers. I called the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and spoke with a deputy named Tom Reardon. He'd worked several of the cases. When I asked about the pattern, he went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're not the first person to notice, but there's nothing solid to investigate. No crime scene, no evidence of foul play. People get lost in the wilderness." Before he hung up, he added, "If you're thinking of going out there yourself, stay on marked trails and don't go alone." I decided to spend 2 weeks in the area. I thought I'd find a logical explanation. Maybe a dangerous wildlife den, maybe terrain that causes disorientation. By day 3, I knew this was something else. Sorry for the quick interruption. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for being part of Unexplained Accounts. Lately, The channel hasn't been shown as much across this platform, so if you're enjoying this story, please take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support really helps new listeners discover these stories and keeps the channel going strong. Now, let's get back to this story. The first week, I focused on interviewing locals. What I heard made the hair on my arms stand up. I met with family members of 3 other missing hunters. All of them told me the same thing. In the days or weeks before the disappearance, their loved ones mentioned hearing voices in the forest. One man, James Keller, who vanished in 2018, told his brother he kept hearing his ex-wife calling for help, even though she lived in Seattle. Another hunter, Brian Moss, disappeared in 2020 after telling his girlfriend he'd heard children laughing deep in the woods, far from any trails. A woman named Sarah Chen went missing in 2022. Her hiking partner said Sarah heard her mother's voice and walked toward it. The partner tried to follow but lost sight of her within seconds. When she reached the spot, Sarah was gone. I spoke with Randy Coleman, a retired forest ranger who worked Mount Hood for 25 years. When I mentioned the disappearances, he looked at me hard and said, "You're asking about the wrong thing." I asked what he meant. He said, "Don't ask why people disappear. Ask what's calling them." He told me about a section of forest about 6 miles northeast of Government Camp, near an abandoned fire lookout tower built in the 1960s. The area had a reputation. Hikers reported strange sounds, feelings of being watched, compasses spinning. In 1978, a logger crew working nearby claimed they all heard a woman screaming for 3 straight days. Search parties found nothing. The crew refused to go back. 2 days later, I hiked out to the tower. I brought a local guide named Eric Duval, a wilderness survival instructor who knew the area. The trail started easy, well marked, but after about 20 minutes, we veered off onto an old logging road barely visible through the undergrowth. The temperature dropped noticeably, maybe 10 degrees in the span of 50 yards. Eric felt it too. He said the forest was too quiet. No birds, no insects, nothing. We found the fire lookout after another 15 minutes. The tower leaned at a dangerous angle, half collapsed, the wooden stairs rotted through. But what caught my attention was the clearing around it. Someone had been there recently. There were boot prints in the mud, fresh, maybe a day old, and arranged in the center of the clearing were 7 backpacks, laid out in a perfect circle. I recognized one immediately. It was David Hendrick's pack. I'd seen photos of it. The others looked old, weathered, some covered in moss. Each one had personal items inside: wallets, phones, hunting knives, water bottles. I took photos of everything. One pack had a driver's license from 2016. Another had a journal dated 2019. These were from missing hikers. Eric backed away from the circle and said we should leave. His voice was shaking. Before we left, I noticed something carved into the base of the tower. Symbols, dozens of them, cut deep into the wood. Circles within circles, lines radiating outward, triangles stacked on top of each other. They looked fresh. Some of the wood was still light-colored where it had been carved recently. I didn't recognize the symbols, but they felt intentional, like a language or warning. That night, I researched the area's history. In 1974, a logging accident killed 8 workers about a mile from the tower site. A cable snapped during a timber operation, and the logs came down like an avalanche. 5 bodies were recovered. 3 were never found. The logging company shut down operations in that section permanently. But that wasn't all. I found references to older stories. The Chinook tribes who lived in the area before European settlement had legends about the forests near Mount Hood. They spoke of a spirit that mimicked the voices of loved ones to lure people away from their camps. They called it the Faceless Walker. No one who followed the voices ever returned. The next morning, I went back to the tower alone. Eric refused to go with me. He said he'd heard something during the night, a voice calling his daughter's name outside his tent. But his daughter was safe at home in Portland. When I got to the clearing, the backpacks were gone, all of them. But the boot prints were still there, and now there were more. They circled the clearing, dozens of them, all the same size, and in the center where the packs had been, someone had written in the dirt with a stick, "Leave." I heard it then. My name, Marcus. Clear as day, coming from deep in the forest beyond the tower. It sounded exactly like my sister's voice. But my sister lives in San Diego. Over the next 5 days, things got worse. I went back to the tower the following morning with better recording equipment. A digital voice recorder, a GoPro camera, spare batteries. Eric still wouldn't come, so I hired another guide, a younger guy named Matt Stevens, who'd worked search and rescue in the area for 2 years. I told him about the voices. He said he'd heard the stories but figured they were just legend. People get disoriented in dense forest, he said. Sound travels weird through trees. We reached the clearing around 10 a.m. The symbols on the tower were darker now, like someone had traced over them with charcoal or ash. Matt walked the perimeter while I set up the camera. I was adjusting the tripod when I heard it again. My sister's voice, calling my name from the forest. This time it was closer, maybe 100 yards out. Matt heard it too. He looked at me and said, "That's not a recording. That's real." We followed the sound. The forest was dense, old-growth Douglas fir and western hemlock. Visibility dropped to about 30 feet. The voice kept calling, always just ahead, always moving. After what felt like 20 minutes, I checked my watch. We'd been walking for an hour and a half. Matt pulled out his GPS. It showed us in the same spot we'd started. He tapped the screen, reset it, same result. His compass spun slowly, never settling on north. The voice stopped. The forest went completely silent. No wind, no birds, nothing. Matt whispered that we should head back. We turned around and started walking. After 10 minutes, we came to a clearing. It was the same clearing with the tower, but we'd been walking away from it. We tried again, different direction. 20 minutes later, same clearing. That's when I saw it between the trees, tall, maybe 8 feet, standing perfectly still about 50 yards into the forest. Too thin for a person. Its proportions were wrong. Long arms, long legs, narrow torso. I grabbed the camera and pointed it toward the figure. Through the viewfinder, I could see it clearly. It had no face. Where a face should be was smooth, pale skin, like unfinished clay. It didn't move, just stood there watching us. Matt saw it too. He backed up slowly and said we needed to leave now. The figure tilted its head, slow and deliberate, like it was studying us. Then it moved, not walking. It shifted between the trees, impossibly fast, no sound. One moment, 50 yards away. The next, maybe 20 yards, still watching. I hit record on the camera. The screen went black. Dead battery. I just put in a fresh one 10 minutes ago. We ran. I don't know how we found the trail, but we did. When we got back to the parking area, we checked the footage. The camera had 6 minutes of recording before the battery died. It showed the clearing, the forest. But where the figure should have been, there was nothing. Just trees and shadows. Matt quit the next day. He wouldn't talk about what we saw. He just texted me, "Don't go back there. I'm serious." But I had to go back. The next morning, I drove out to the ranger station and spoke with Tom Reardon, the deputy I'd talked to on the phone. I showed him the photos of the backpacks, the symbols, told him everything. He didn't look surprised. He said 3 other people had reported seeing something tall in that section of forest over the past decade. None of them could describe it clearly. One called it the Gray Man. Another said it had no face. The third said it moved like smoke. Reardon said something else. In 2016, a hiker named Jennifer Marsh went missing near the tower. Her boyfriend was with her. He told investigators Jennifer heard her dead mother calling her name. She walked into the forest and he followed. He said something tall stepped out from behind a tree and Jennifer walked toward it. He screamed at her to stop, but she didn't react. The thing put its hand on her shoulder and they both disappeared. 1 second there, the next gone. He was found 2 days later, wandering the highway, incoherent. After he told the story, investigators assumed he'd had a breakdown. They never found Jennifer. I asked Reardon if he believed the boyfriend's story. He looked me in the eye and said, "I think something's out there. I don't know what it is, but I stopped going into those woods off trail 10 years ago." That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was my voice on the other end. My exact voice, saying my name over and over, getting quieter each time until it faded to nothing. I hung up. The phone rang again. Same thing. I turned it off. The following day, I went back to the tower one last time. I told myself I just needed photos of the symbols for my article. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Looking back, that was stupid. The trail felt different. The air was warmer the deeper I went, not colder. When I reached the clearing, there was someone standing by the tower. For a second, I thought it was another hiker. Then I realized it was too tall. It stood there facing me, no features on its pale face, just smooth skin and 2 dark impressions where eyes should be. I froze. It didn't move. We stood there, maybe 40 yards apart, just staring. I don't know how long. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been 5 minutes. Then it opened its mouth. Not like a human mouth. The whole lower half of its face split open, too wide, revealing rows of teeth. Not sharp like fangs. Just too many of them, small and white and wrong. It spoke. The voice came from everywhere at once, layered, a dozen voices speaking the same words at different pitches. It said my name, then it said, "Stay." I ran. I crashed through the undergrowth, branches tearing at my jacket. I could hear it behind me, not running but moving, branches snapping, something heavy pushing through the forest. The sounds stayed close, but never got closer. Like it was pacing me. I burst out onto the logging road and sprinted for the trailhead. When I reached my truck, I looked back. It was standing at the edge of the tree line, maybe 100 feet away. Tall and pale and wrong, just watching. I drove straight to Portland. Didn't stop until I hit city limits. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the wheel. When I parked at my hotel, I checked my phone. There was a voicemail from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but I listened. It was my sister's voice. She said, "Marcus, where are you? I need help. Please come find me." I called my sister immediately. She answered on the second ring. She was fine, at home in San Diego, hadn't called me. She had no idea what I was talking about. The voicemail was still on my phone. I played it for her. She went quiet. Then she said, "That's my voice. But that's not me. What the hell is that?" I didn't have an answer. That was 3 weeks ago. I left Oregon the next morning and haven't been back. But the experiences haven't stopped. I still get calls at 3:00 a.m. from unknown numbers. Sometimes it's my voice. Sometimes it's my sister. Once it was my mother, who died in 2019. The voicemails are always the same. Someone calling my name, asking me to come back, saying they need help. I can't sleep without the lights on. I keep the curtains closed because twice now I've seen something tall standing in the parking lot of my apartment complex just outside the glow of the street lights. Both times, when I blinked, it was gone. I've spent the past 3 weeks researching similar cases across the Pacific Northwest. What I found terrifies me. The pattern isn't limited to Oregon. Washington State has at least 9 similar disappearances near Mount Rainier. Northern California has 7 around Shasta Trinity National Forest. Idaho has 5 in the Sawtooth Wilderness. All of them fit the same profile. Experienced outdoors people, voices calling them, dogs refusing to track, personal items found but no bodies. I reached out to other journalists and researchers who've covered these cases. 4 of them responded. 2 shared nearly identical experiences to mine. One saw the same tall figure near Rainier. The other heard her husband's voice in the Sawtooth Wilderness, even though her husband was dead. The other 2 never responded. I checked. Both are listed as missing. One disappeared while hiking in Northern California in 2023. The other vanished during a research trip in Washington last year. I filed a full report with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Reardon took my statement, but he said without a body or concrete evidence of a crime, there's nothing they can investigate. Off the record, he told me he'd heard from 3 other people in the past month who'd seen something similar near the tower. He said the county was considering closing that section of forest, but it's federal land and the decision isn't theirs. I don't know what that thing is. Maybe it's some kind of predator we haven't documented. Something that evolved to hunt humans by mimicking voices. Maybe it's something older, territorial, protecting an area we're not supposed to enter. I've read theories about interdimensional beings, cryptids, even mass hallucination caused by infrasound or magnetic anomalies. None of them feel right. What I do know is this. It studies you before it takes you. It learns your voice, your mannerisms, the people you love, and once it knows you, it can call you anytime, anywhere. David Hendricks is still missing, so are 11 others. I don't think they're lost. I think they're being kept somewhere, or used somehow. I don't know. Last night, I woke up to scratching on my bedroom window. Slow, deliberate, 5 long scrapes moving downward. I live on the 4th floor. I didn't look. I don't want to know if it followed me home. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.